to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to another episode of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast. I am your host, Michael Leva, joined as I am each and every week by Josh Moser of WSVN 7, South Florida's #1 news station. Josh, outside of the Miami Dolphins, how's everything else going?
Oh, man, I don't know. My Monday Night Football hangover is real. It's everything else is okay. But, I mean, a lot of people are invested in this Dolphins team, and you know, this was supposed to be the year. You know, you had owner Stephen Ross come out and say, you know, we have a contender. And then as soon as Tua went down in week 2, this offense has looked terrible, abysmal, whatever adjective or, you know, synonym to that you want to throw in there. And there's a lot of question marks right now, Mike, about this team. And I know Dolphins fans are feeling, you know, 23 years without a playoff win. You're there last year. You're there the year before. And now it's like, here we go again. And, you know, hopefully it doesn't get to the point where we get to the trade deadline and the Dolphins start to sell off pieces.
Yeah, we're going to talk about all that. It just feels like it's been 2 steps forward and 1 giant step back this year. And that's kind of where I think fans of the Dolphins feel. After 1 month where they're 1-3 and they've already played 3 home games too. So from here on out, it's gonna be a lot of road games as well. But we're going to talk about all that. But before I get to any of that, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's show, Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, your Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a gift, or the newest hat to hit the market for your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. If you don't live in South Florida, don't worry. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home. And yes, they'll ship internationally as well. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Okay, like we said, they're 1-3, lost 31-12 to the Titans, who didn't have a win all season. Last week for Seattle, they only scored 3 points. Right now, Miami is the worst offensive team in the league with the backup quarterbacks. And you're talking about, you know, trading off pieces a month from now when we get closer to the trade deadline, or really by the end of this month, I think. Let me just phrase it like this. It's tough to see this team winning games without Tua. And it's not even for a lot of reasons. I think whether it's Skyler, Tim Boyle, or Tyler Huntley, and it will be Tyler Huntley this week versus the Patriots, it was already announced, they just look overwhelmed. The offensive line in front of them looks overwhelmed. The wide receivers are dropping balls too, which who would expect that when you pay Waddle and Hill that much money? They're dropping passes. They're not getting a lot of help there. And the play calling really hasn't changed to try to make things easier for a backup. It seems like, at least to the naked eye, that Mike McDaniel is calling the same type of game he would as if Tua was there, which I don't know would work with any of these 3 quarterbacks. Are we staring at 1-4 or 1-5 before Tua possibly can come back? I mean, I think that's the way a lot of fans feel.
I feel like you need to win at least one of these 2 games. And realistically, these are 2 very winnable games. You talk about the Dolphins having the worst offense in the league. The Patriots are right there with them. They're the second worst. And you have enough pieces on this team to win games. There's no reason for the result Monday night. That was purely on the Dolphins making a multitude of mistakes. And we're talking, as bad as this offense has been, Miami's got the #1 ranked 3rd down defense in the league. And so there are some good things that this team has going for it. It's just there is zero complimentary football. I think a lot of onus needs to fall on head coach Mike McDaniel. I mean, we've talked about this. Mike McDaniel is the perfect coach for Tua. They have an unbelievable chemistry. I truly feel that they bring the best out of each other. However, you can't call the same game that you would for Tua with someone else. And this is where I need to see Mike McDaniel adjust. I understand you haven't had Raheem Mostert for the last 3 games, your touchdown leader from last season, and you didn't have Teron Armstead this week, but you should still be in a position where Skylar Thompson has been in your system for 3 years. You should know how to call a game for him. Snoop Huntley, a little bit different, but you had an extended period to test him out. And here you have him again, where you know that he can't really make that long pass. We know that it's going to be getting first downs with his legs, like we've seen in that short to intermediate pass, which is what this offense realistically is, Mike. You're just trying to get the ball out in less than 2 seconds and get it to your guys in space. That's all you're really trying to do. You don't have to do too much. Just be John Stockton and just distribute the ball. So it's all on execution. Like, everything is there. This team they've missed blocks. They've been out of position, the uncharacteristic drops. It's like almost like this offense has gotten the yips is maybe the best way to describe it from both a playing perspective and a play calling perspective. And I mean, Tyreek looks awful. And he has the effort on the fumble that changed the entire game for me. You don't turn that ball over, I think it's a completely different game. But there was no wherewithal, 1, to secure the pass, 2, to go after the ball, thinking that it could have been, a lateral, that the pass didn't get back to the line of scrimmage. He basically just quit. And you just can see his face, how frustrated he was on the sideline. I don't blame him, but you're supposed to be a leader on this team. This is it. Like, you have the pieces that are there. And right now, Mike, I mean, they're just squandering it. And as you mentioned, you get 3 home games against teams, that are not very good. Your only win is against a team that's 0-4. They're the only team without a win in the NFL. So it's only going to get harder. And these are 2 very winnable games against, not a good team in the Patriots and a struggling and banged up Colts team that they'll have after the bye.
Yeah. It's just, I think, for a lot of fans, we saw what this offense was the past 2 seasons. And to see what it is now, where it's just to get a first down seems like it's like a struggle. And, I was here in 2019. I saw that very up close, very firsthand. And that year, I don't want to say they were trying to lose, but in some ways they were trying to lose. They sort of took the roster, sent every piece that was worth anything away, and they were starting from the ground up. That team looked more put together than what we've seen after 1 month of this team, where it's got Hall of Famers and Hill and Ramsey, and Waddle makes a lot of money, and Pro Bowlers all over the place. It just seems like nothing's working, nothing's clicking. And I know there's a lot of blame to go around how the roster was built. There's some blame there. Mike McDaniel, the job he's done, there's some blame there. Execution from the players, like you said, with Hill. Waddle's had some drops, there's some blame there. Offensive line, I know it's not the strongest in the league, but you got to play better than what they're playing. There's some blame there. There's a lot of blame to go around. And, the one thing about the NFL season is it flies by in the blink of an eye. Like, it's already October 1st, and it feels like we just saw the week 1 game where Holland's punching out the ball in the end. Like, this is season flying by. I'll be down there at the end of October. It seems like I just, had my hotel and stuff booked, but it's like, this could get out of hand quick. And they really need to have a come to Jesus moment, probably this week, and be like, how do we stop the bleeding now? And I think it does come down to players, and it comes down to Mike McDaniel going, I have to change something. And I hope, he says the right things at the press conference, but when push comes to shove, we've yet to see him change. So let's hope he can change a little bit.
Yeah. The other question that we still don't know when we spoke to him today, if Tua's coming back or not. We know that Adam Schefter said that, it looks like that Tua has no concussion symptoms. Mike McDaniel would not address where Tua is in the concussion protocol. So hypothetically, the first week that he could come back would be week 8 against the Cardinals. So there's still 2 more games before that. But Mike, if you're 1-5,
that's what are you bringing him back for? Why is Chubb coming back? Why is anyone coming back at that point?
I actually have a question for you. Hypothetically, say this team's 1-5. I would feel that with this roster, someone would need to take the blame. And my question is, who would be first to go? Mike McDaniel, who just got an extension because he's making the play calling, or Chris Grier?
I got the answer. It's simple. It's got to be Chris Grier. The man's been here 24 years. I know not all is a general manager, but he's been here 24 years. And, I don't say this to be cruel. I say it to be honest because it's factual. His resume as a general manager, I'm not talking about time as a scout. That's who cares? As a general manager, his resume, when you list the accomplishments, it's a blank sheet of paper. I mean, they made the playoffs twice as a 7th seed and a 6th seed. That's nice. He lost both. I mean, there's no accomplishments to hang your hat on there. It has to be him. And then you bring in a new GM and let him make the call when it comes to McDaniel and Tua and everything else. I think it's got to start top down. And that's where for me, that's where I'd start. It's got to be the guy who's been here the longest and just hasn't produced the results. But to the question you also said about 1-4, 1-5, 1-5, if they're that, do you bring Tua back? Here's the other question if you're Mr. Ross and whoever his inner circle, not counting Chris Grier, is. You got to realize, and I don't need to be Ron Jaworski locked in the NFL film studio breaking down film for 10 hours a day. The Miami Dolphins have a golden ticket to the number 1 pick of the draft, and that is Skylar Thompson, Tim Boyle, and Tyler Huntley. If you just play those 3, you're not trying. I mean, you're going to be picking first, okay? Because those three, you can pick them out of a hat each week. I don't think it matters which one plays. You ain't scoring points, and you ain't beating any of the teams, especially when you get to Thanksgiving on. And even before that, you got the Rams on the road, at the Bills. Arizona's tricky. Joe Flacco's halfway. Like, you're not beating these teams with those guys. You're just not. And do you have the tough conversation? Because even if you don't want to move on from the quarterback, let's say they don't. Okay, fine. If you're picking 1, you can trade that pick and get a haul of picks, absolute haul to reshape the franchise for the next 5 or so years if you hit on the pick correctly, obviously. But there is that conversation where you can just tell Tua, look, we care about your health a lot. Take the rest of the year off. See you in 2025. And then, guys like Mostert, who probably won't be here next year, Jaylen Wright, Achane, they're the future. You can trade Mostert for a 6th or a 7th to a team that might need a running back down the stretch. Someone like Armstead is talking about retirement. We got to get Patrick Paul the reps anyways. He's a 2nd-round pick. If he's healthy enough to trade, Armstead, you send him to a contender who might need a left tackle for the stretch run who's got a chance to win. Someone like Chubb, his contract, I think, has an out after this year where they can free open a lot of space. You got Chop Robinson, Mama Kamara. He has been active, but you got Chop at least. He's the future. You want to get him as much reps as possible anyways. Hopefully, maybe some team wants Chubb, who, again, you're getting 6th, 7th round picks. But the big one is Javon Holland. Because, and I don't know who makes this call, especially if you're going to move on from Grier. But even, let's say he keeps his job. I don't know. I mean, he's been here for 24 years. He might keep the job. If he has no intention to re-sign him, do not play the compensatory pick game. Because a compensatory pick is essentially the first pick of round 4 or in round 4 in 2026. A long ways away. If you trade him now, because you have no intention of keeping him anyways, then you can get a 2nd or 3rd round pick that'll help you next year. And that would be the wise thing to do. Now, it's a tough pill to swallow because he's so good. But if you're not going to keep him and the season's over, why wouldn't you trade him in October before the deadline and get something that can help you now if there's a team who wants him, which I'm sure there'd be a team who want him.
For sure.
That's the one to watch. And it comes down to, I think we spoke about this last week off the air, how comfortable is Chris Grier in his job? If he's comfortable, he'll make the trades because he's getting picks for himself to use next year. If he's not comfortable, he won't make these trades because he needs to win games the second half of the year to maybe save his job. And that's where it gets tricky and where Mr. Ross and whoever his inner circle is outside of Grier need to sit down and have a come to Jesus moment and figure this out.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing to me, though, is the way that this offense is performing right now, Mike. Even if you plug Tua back in there,
they're still not winning a lot of these games. Yeah.
If you put Patrick Mahomes in there, I don't think you're winning a lot of these games. So it shows to me that more is broken than just Tua. And yes, you just paid him $200 million. For his sake, I like the guy a lot. I think he's a good player. You invested a lot of money in him, and you don't know what that next hit is going to be, and you don't know what that next hit is going to bring. And, I understand that it's market value for the quarterback right now, and you paid that. You paid less on the annual average compared to what some of the other quarterbacks got in his draft class. I mean, shoot, look at Trevor Lawrence, and they're 0-4. But to me, I cannot figure out with all of these Pro Bowlers and with how this roster looks on paper why the execution is so poor offensively. And Mike McDaniel seemingly can't put his finger on it. You can talk about quarterback play, overthrows, etc., but it's almost like the team just isn't doing what they're doing at practice. There's a disconnect from how they're practicing to how they're playing. And to me, kind of answering that question, I think it's a Frank Smith. I think it's an offensive coordinator might take the rap because you just gave McDaniel
someone's taking a fall. Yeah, someone's going to take the fall.
Danny Crossman seems like he's invincible no matter what he does.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I kind of feel like the fan base and even us that cover the team, it's like we're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
It's not fun anymore. Yeah, it feels exhausting at times. Like, this is football. It's supposed to be fun. If you have a job like you do or something like I do, or if you're just a fan watching a game at home, like, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be enjoyable. With this franchise, there's been fun moments, I always say, and there's been fun seasons. Like last year, for the most part, was fun. Even the year before, for the most part, was fun. But there's been too many years prior to that where it hasn't been fun. And it feels like I shouldn't have to, oh, there's a Dolphins game today. And that's how a lot of fans feel right now, because we've been through this so many times. Like, if you're a Chiefs fan, if they have an off year, it's like, I've won Super Bowls. It's an off year. I'll be fine. I'll see you next September. Or if it's a team like that, even a team like the Packers, they're always in the mix somehow, some way. Yeah. They might not win the Super Bowl every year. They might not even make the playoffs every year, but they're in the mix every year. There's never like a real down year. They're in the mix. With Miami, it's like, first off, the peak is only like a wild card nowadays, which is a pretty low bar. But the valleys are just like this, where you just kind of feel hopeless as a fan. And I think these fans, I don't live down there, so it's a little different for me. But the folks who have season tickets, who put in so much money to buy those tickets, and they keep raising the prices, and they keep getting phone calls every other week to try to upsell them on more. You get asked for more money, but what do you got to show for it? And it comes a point where it's like, how much money do I keep? Not me, in general, like your average fan, do you keep shelling out when the return just is never there? Like, it's never there. They haven't had a home playoff game since 2008.
Yeah. Here's maybe that brought it home for me this weekend. The ACC opener for the Canes, who were then number 7 in the country, Friday night against Virginia Tech. That ticket was more expensive than the Monday night ticket against Tennessee. That should never
happen.
Be the case. And
they don't draw flies, the Canes, unless they're good. Like, they really don't draw flies. I went to a Friday night game. It had to be pre-pandemic, like 2019, maybe 2019. It was a Friday night Miami Virginia game. I know it's Virginia. Josh, I could have sat in anywhere in that stadium I wanted. I could have yelled across the stadium to the guy on the 200 level, and we could have had a conversation. There was nobody there. It's like nobody. So the fact that the Canes are now outdrawing you is quite sad, actually, in your building that you own. But it comes down to leadership. It starts from the top. And you can't tell someone who's worth billions of dollars to sell the team. He can sell the team. Whatever. It is what it is. He'll sell a team when he's good and ready to sell the team. But starting with Chris Grier and down, those guys, it's a results-oriented league. You can be the nicest guy in the world. You can tell all the, jokes at the press conferences. You got to win in this league. And the honeymoon's over, I think, for the head coach. And I think the honeymoon's been over for the GM. And, when he stands up there, and we play the clip all the time, because when the time comes, this is going to be the downfall of this man. Do I have it ready? I should have them. I got them both ready. I'll play them both.
Well, I think you guys are probably more worried than we are, in terms of, at the position depth at those spots you talked about. But
and then this year,
we're confident in the offensive line. So again, it's just one of those. It's Mike and I we always kind of chuckle. I know you guys made a joke about me saying that you guys are more worried about it than we are. But internally, that's how we feel about our group here as a team.
I mean, if you're going to say that we're back there laughing, we're chuckling, then you better put a winner on the field. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's more questions than answers right now. It's like, where do we go from here? Like, I think people are just sick of words. I think even the players, for the most part, like, they knew how close they were last year. Like, they felt that they could take that step, and they basically just been stepped on for the first month of the season. I mean, you take away that Javon Holland punch out, this team's 0-4 when you think about it that way. I mean, a bright spot has been Emmanuel Ogbah. And then, I mean, they got him for significant.
Who they didn't even want. They cut him.
Yeah, they cut him. They brought him back for like $10 million less. He's making $5 million. Calais Campbell's been a nice pickup. David Long Jr. was playing great until he got hurt. Jordan Poyer, really hasn't done much. But now Jaylen Phillips is going to be out this week with that knee injury. Looked like he took Poyer's helmet to the knee in the second quarter last night. Odell Beckham Jr. is going to practice tomorrow for the first time. The same with Cam Smith. Yeah. So, like, this team's been missing a number 3 receiver. Barrios seemingly at this point seems like he's just going to be on special teams as a punt kick returner. Jeff Wilson had a knee injury all of a sudden in warmups yesterday. So it's, you're supposed to be having this, next man up mentality that everybody says. And we're just like, all right, where is this? Like, let's go. Like,
I think a lot of the frustration too is the offensive line, once again, you don't have to be Vince Lombardi. It's been a pain point for years. And last year, when healthy with Hunt and Connor, who I know weren't healthy most of the year. Then you got Armstead in the lineup. They actually played well when they were healthy together. But okay, if you're going to sell me that we can't afford Hunt, which I know he made a boatload of money, and Connor Williams had that nasty injury, he's not coming back, but he signed with Seattle. Whatever happened there, okay. And your replacements are Aaron Brewer at center, which I think most people said fine. That's fine. But we're going to sign Jack Driscoll for right guard, and we're going to bring back Wynn for left guard. Now, Wynn was injured last year. You know about the injury because it happened on your watch. And there's, rumors and rumblings he might not even play this year, or by the time he's ready, season's probably long over. So it's like that seemed like a poor plan of attack for left guard. And then right guard, Jack Driscoll, who, is he not exactly Larry Little, we all admit, but he's pretty good. He was okay in training camp. Compared to the people around him, he was okay. And he doesn't even make the final roster. And you promote from within the people who have failed you for years, and Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg, who, again, I'm sure they're nice people. They try hard. They work hard. But it's like, that's not good enough. And then the other side, you let Wilkins go, Raekwon go, okay. And you sign 5 or 6 guys. And out of the 5 or 6, you keep one in Jones. And then you sign a guy who's 38, who can only play about 30 to 40 snaps. And it's like, this doesn't make any sense. And then here's the one that really drives me nuts. Okay, Skylar Thompson, Mike White, one of them's going to stay, one of them's going to go. Okay, you got Tua, Skylar, and then we're talking about trading for Huntley. No, we don't trade for him. Then he's on waivers. We don't put in a claim. Sign Tim Boyle, whatever, third-string quarterback. Who cares? Okay, down goes Tua, down goes Skylar. Now we're gonna sign Huntley off a practice squad. And we're going to bypass Tim Boyle and rush to get Huntley on the field. Then why is Tim Boyle even here? Why didn't we just go with Huntley from the beginning? And why is Tim Boyle here if we have no intention of ever playing him? And we're going to rush out and get this guy and have him bypass Tim Boyle. What's Tim Boyle's purpose at this point? Like, none of this makes sense. And when you say it out loud, like, I think most rational, level-headed fans, even if you don't want to be labeled negative or a hater, like, you go, this doesn't make sense. And I don't make millions of dollars to make these decisions, but none of this makes any sense. Like, what was their thought process? And you'll never get a straight answer from them. But it's like, that's the stuff that drives fans nuts. It's like, okay, like if we signed or if we put in a claim for Huntley after we cut Mike White and he's like the third string quarterback, cool. Okay. And then down goes our top 2 quarterbacks to go to Huntley. That makes sense. But we bring in Tim Boyle, but we really don't want to play him. Now let's get Huntley, and we got to, race to get him ready. Like, there's no logic. And I think that's where fans get frustrated.
Well, I mean, here's how I break it down. So you cut Mike White. That is simply a cap move. Skyler beat him out in cap. You save $3.5 million. That was a financial decision right there. So then Tua goes down. You have the opportunity to bring back Mike White, who was on the Bills practice squad. You choose not to. He may have said no. I don't even know if the Dolphins offered him. Mike might have just said, no, sorry, thank you very much. But on a practice squad with a chance to go back on a 53 to make, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what happens there. So then Tim Boyle is your best available. He came up as Aaron Rodgers' backup before he bounced around to the Lions, the Bears. Then he ended up back with Rodgers in New York with the Jets. But I know that Mike McDaniel has a very close relationship with Matt LaFleur. I covered Matt LaFleur for a long time in Green Bay, and that was the Tim Boyle connection where they knew that he could come in and learn this offense very quickly and that he would be a good backup for Skyler, where his game kind of mirrors Skyler. So then all of a sudden Skyler goes down. We know that they've had an eye on Huntley for a considerable amount of time. And the fact that he was a Pro Bowler simply because everyone else said no, but he did look good at times in the Ravens system. You have Anthony Weaver from the Ravens system. You have a lot of other coaches that coached Huntley with the Ravens. And the thing that he has over Tim Boyle is his ability to run the ball. Tim Boyle is more of a pocket passer. And they felt that with more of a mobile quarterback, they would have a better opportunity. But then, where we talked about earlier, like that was the mindset. So it's like, all right, this guy's been a Pro Bowler. He's won more regular season games than Boyle. We think overall he gives us a better chance to win. But then you can't have him run this outside zone offense. Like that just doesn't work. He ran Lamar Jackson's offense. You have to change your playbook to do that. Mike McDaniel said, he only had a week and a half in the play. He was here for 2 weeks in the playbook, and then they ran a couple things that he ran in Baltimore. But to me, they just didn't set him up for success. They didn't have enough time to really get him ready. So,
I get it, but
it's that's the rationale. Now it's like, okay, well, Huntley did a couple good things, so now he's going to be more comfortable. He should be good enough to go beat the Patriots. But then all of a sudden, if he doesn't beat the Patriots, you're going to go back to Skyler, who it sounds like he broke a rib, but they're not saying that he broke a rib. But if you're missing consecutive games, you broke a rib.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but again, you're 1-4, 1-5, and now you're staring at the barrel of your schedule. You should beat the Raiders, I think, or after that. I know you've got the Cardinals in there too. I think those are two
the Patriots again for a second time. You got the Patriots real close together twice.
So I mean, those are hypothetically you're 1-5, right? So you get to 4-5 here before and I hate to say this, Mike, the AFC. I understand the Chiefs are 4-0, but the Ravens are a good team. They lost a couple early. The Bengals are a good team. They lost a few early. There's no clear-cut great team.
Chiefs, Ravens, Bills. I think it's Chiefs, Ravens, Bills. Then there's a big drop-off. I think those three are cut above everyone. I don't care what the records are right now, although aside from the Ravens, I think Chiefs are undefeated. They've lost one Buffalo. After those three, just from the eyeball test, there's a drop-off when you get to the Pittsburghs, Cleveland, Cincinnati's of the world, Chargers, anybody in the South.
Yeah, Houston looked good until Joe Mixon got hurt. So, I mean, it's almost like if we're talking about the ceiling being the wild card, you should have enough, depending on all these teams knocking each other out, to be at least in the mix come November. And then depending on what happens. But I guess my message is Dolphins fans, the season is not lost at 1-3, even at 1-4. But to expect Tua to come back and just be the savior and all of a sudden them win 8 in a row, I don't see that happening. I hope that I'm wrong. But,
I know. I mean, all of us hope we're wrong with some of this stuff.
Yeah, but it's like,
Well, here's the thing with Tua too. Here's the thing. He comes back, say they beat Arizona. All right, you're feeling high. Now go play the Bills on the road.
That's right.
And we've lost 14. We lost 14-16 versus the Bills. Now go on the road and beat them, because if you don't beat them then, Then they swept you again. You're going to be 2 and whatever or 3 and whatever. And then it's like, wow, that's going to take all the wind out of any sails at that point.
Yeah, but I mean, look, the Jets look like they're a mess. I mean,
oh, they are.
They self-destructed against the Broncos. They should have won that game. I mean, I think that's realistically, that could be 2 wins. I think it could be 2 wins against the Patriots, even, including this next week here. The Raiders, I think, could be a win, especially if
Raiders, Cleveland. Yeah, I mean, you can find games if he's on the field versus those opponents, but it's just, you got to get to that point. In these next 2 games with Huntley or whoever else is just going to be such a struggle.
Yeah, the Rams defense is weak. I mean, they still have Kupp and Puka Nacua out. I mean, like, it's just timing. It's just like, it's not that the Dolphins are good. It's more that like everyone else is kind of bad too. So the water's muddy. It's just like, can you grit through it and come away with some wins? And they should be in there for the Fins if they can figure this out. But I think this week will be very telling against the Patriots. But I mean, you go up to Foxborough and you lose to this team, like at least make this game competitive. Like show me
put up a fight. Exactly. Put up a fight.
But we're talking about there were 11 penalties, 98 yards against the Titans. There were 78 passing yards. I mean, you had 20 more penalty yards than passing yards. I mean, it's great for people betting the under, but I mean, it was like watching a high school football game with the amount of mistakes that were made. And then when you sit above and you get the all 11 view, the receivers that were open that were just like Huntley didn't get to that read. It was like, we're talking about Mason Rudolph here. I mean, like, throw it back 2 years to when he was the backup in Pittsburgh and Huntley was playing for Lamar Jackson in 22. Like, well, that's kind of what we were watching. Rudolph picked him apart. I mean, he had some great timing throws.
Well, it goes to show you, if you invest in a veteran backup quarterback in that God forbid moment, you can have, not that Mason Rudolph's great, but he's seen a thing or two. He's been around the block a time or two. He can hold the fort down for a week or 2 or 3 or a month, and all hell won't break loose. And I think whatever the Dolphins do after this year, whoever the starter, invest in a capable backup quarterback. Doesn't have to be the most expensive guy. Who?
You did that in Mike White. You paid the man $4 million.
I was never a Mike White guy. I was never a Mike White guy. Mike White made his name because he wasn't Zach Wilson, and just players and fans and the coaches hated Zach Wilson so much. Literally, you could have been quarterback, and they would have propped up Josh Moser. The players wore shirts that said Mike.
Look like Zach Wilson.
Bleeping White, because they hated Zach Wilson so much. Mike White was never great. He just made a name that wasn't Zach Wilson, so we'll like anyone over Zach Wilson. Yes, you do kind of look like Zach Wilson a little bit. All right, well, we'll see what happens this week versus the Patriots, and we'll take it from there, one game at a time. It's all you can do, one game at a time. We'll see, and everything else will work itself out in the coming weeks, because a lot of it really depends on, there's losing, and then there's losing. You lose a game 21-20, hey, you're in it to fight. Okay, you got some hope. You lose the game like we've been losing, or it's been kind of not competitive, that's a different type of loss. So everything's going to fall into place in time, and it'll be interesting to see as the season goes on. Everyone, be sure to follow Josh Moser on Twitter at The Mose Knows, and catch him on WSVN 7, South Florida's number one news station. Yeah, right there if you're watching on YouTube. Josh, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again next week.
Yeah, hopefully we're talking about a win. Hopefully.
Let's hope. I can't keep doing this. It's a long season.
Freaking need it. It's been a long week. It's only Tuesday.